Good morning and greetings in the name of our King Jesus Christ. This is Pastor Marco Kiroglu. Have you noticed in the recent years there has been an increasing global effort of trying to strip off the Jewish ethnicity of Jesus of him and making Jesus anything but a Jew? Now, this kind of efforts have been around for as long as Christianity has been around. For many centuries, the Roman Catholic Church tried to make Jesus a European with blonde hair and blue eyes. In the recent decades, there have been a concerted effort of various African people trying to make Jesus a black African. But the fact remains unchanged, my friends. Jesus Christ came as a Jew. He was born in the land of the Jews. From a Jewish mother, he was raised by his Jewish earthly father. He was recognized by the Romans and even by many of the Jews as the promised king of the Jews. These are undoubtable facts. These facts are so crystal clear in the Bible, but even in the historical writings that are preserved until this day from the Roman Empire time. Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, was a Jew. He is a Jew. He is the King of the Jews. That is the reason why when Jesus Christ was crucified, Roman ruler of the land of Israel, Pilate, he put on a board, King of the Jews. When he put that phrase, the religious elite in Israel were offended. They protested. But the Roman ruler said, I wrote what I wrote. Meaning that this is not going to change, because he knew this man is a Jew, but no ordinary Jew. He is the promised King of the Jews. Now today, after more than 2,000 years of Bible having been preached all over the world, Bible having been printed more than any other book in the world, more than 2,000 years of Bible schools having taught out of the Bible, it is really a ridiculous position to promote the idea that Jesus Christ is a European or an American or an African or anything but a Jew. He is a Jew. He is the King of the Jews. Now, recently, one of the reasons, perhaps the main reason, why many people would love to strip off the Jewishness of Jesus and make a European or African of him is actually, I believe, that behavior is stemming from their hatred of the Jews. The anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism have been around as long as Jews have been around. The Bible is very clear. God made a covenant with Abraham. And in that covenant, it was a single-sided covenant, meaning that Abraham himself did not have to meet any requirements. God said to Abraham, today I choose you and your offspring that will come from you for many generations, for all the generations. And I will make you a blessing to the nations. I will bless you. And if anyone who blesses you, I will bless them. If they curse you, I will curse them. God meant what he said when God made his covenant with Abraham in Genesis chapter 12. Later, down the pages of the history, when King David came, God renewed the same covenant with King David. And God said to King David, one day, from the lineage of King David, there will come the Messiah, the King of the Jews. And he will rule the world from Jerusalem. Now that promise, the promise of God that one day Messiah will rule the world from Jerusalem, that is not yet fulfilled. Now, all of these promises point to a single person, a single geolocation, and a single nation. All of these promises point to Messiah as the King of the Jews, Jewish nation as the prime nation of the world, and Jerusalem as the capital of the world. Now these are codified in one word, Zionism. Zionism is a biblical word, my friends. But today, we live in a sick world that biblical phrases such as Zionism are taken out of its context and then used as political insults for the Jewish nation. Now, here is the thing, my friends. If you're a believer of the Bible, you have to make your mind. Do you really believe what God has written in the book of Genesis, in the book of the prophecies in the Old Testament regarding the Messiah, regarding the Jewish kingdom that will last 1,000 years, that Messiah will rule the world from Jerusalem for 1,000 years? Do you believe those things? Or do you, such as the Catholic Church and many other Calvinist churches do you chuck away these things as nonsensical allegories? What about the book of Revelation, where clearly we are told that Jesus Christ will come with an angelic army, defeat the armies of the Antichrist, and establish his millennial kingdom in Jerusalem and rule the world from there on for 1,000 years? You see, if you really believe in the Bible, my friends, you have to believe in what the Bible says. If you cannot believe what the Bible says because of political positions, because of political prejudices or racial prejudices, then maybe you don't believe in the Bible at all. You see, the problem is today, especially in the English-speaking Western world, we have a huge problem of many people claiming to be Christians, only embracing Jesus as their sin sacrifice, but then trying to strip Jesus of his Jewish ethnicity, trying to strip Jesus of his royal position as the King of the Jews. Furthermore, these same people will go one step further even and say, well, the church today is Israel. We, as the Gentile believers, are today New Israel. These words are codified in one phrase, replacement theology. Replacement theology says, we, Gentile believers, replace Israel when it comes to God's blessings and promises for Israel. However, when it comes to God's curse and judgment, we give it to the Jews. Let the Jews receive it and let the Jews suffer. This is called the replacement theology. Have you noticed? Replacement theology happens to be on the very foundation. It happens to be one of the foundational pillars of many of the major Christian denominations today, such as many denominations in the Calvinist theological view, as well as many charismatic churches. They built their theological understanding on the premise that church is the new Israel and Jews are not God's people anymore. You see, my friends, if you just put the pieces together, you will realize in a world such as this, where there are hundreds and millions of Christians all over the world who claim to be the new Israel, who claim to be the recipients of God's blessings and promises to the Jews, and at the same time who say that Jews are Christ killers and therefore they should only receive God's judgment and curse and punishment. In a world such as this, it becomes very normal when government leaders condemn the nation of Israel for defending their citizens. Then the church leaders silently support such politicians. Look at the case of South Africa. South Africa today globally recognized as the most outstanding voice in cursing, condemning Israel because the government of Israel, the army of Israel, dare to protect their citizens. And they do this simply by accusing the Jewish nation of genocide. Where are the church leaders? Don't they read their Bibles? Well, they read their Bibles only from a twisted point of view. They only read certain portions of the Bible whereby they can reduce the Jewishness of Jesus to nothing and make Jesus a European or an African, and then thereby go and preach that Jesus died for their sins. When it comes to the question of Jews, they will say the church is the new Israel, the actual Jewish nation is only God's enemy, and therefore they should just receive the wrath of God day after day. This, my friends, is the hard truth of what is going on in the spiritual and political arena of our world today. But I have a sobering warning for you. The nations, historically, bear with me, historically, each and every civilization and nation who turned against Israel eventually started turning against their very own. Eventually, they started slaughtering each other within their own borders. Especially in the Muslim countries, this is crystal clear. Look at the history of each and any Muslim country today in the world. First, they turned against the Jews. Soon after that, they turned against their Christian population. Once the Jews and Christians were exterminated and expelled, they started turning against each other on the premise of accusing each other for not being radical enough Islamic. As a result of that, any one of these countries today are war zones or terrible places where you don't want to step into. In the case of South Africa, look at our country. Once the world's darling country, once the world's celebrated rainbow nation, once the place where everyone wanted to come and make investments, is today being left in derelict condition. Investors have been pulling their millions of dollars of worth investments day after day in the last 2 years especially. Foreigners are pulling out and going away. At the same time, the government is becoming increasingly draconian, raising racial tensions. Government is manipulating racial tensions within South African borders. South Africans are starting to sharpen their teeth against each other, wielding their weapons against each other. All of these are inevitable consequences of cursing the nation of Jesus Christ. When you curse the nation of Jesus Christ, don't expect Jesus to bless your nation. I'm going to say it again. When you claim to be Christian and at the same time curse the nation of Israel, the nation of Jesus, don't expect God to bless and protect your nation. Your downfall is as sure as the setting of the sun. So my friends, what about you on an individual basis, on an individual level? There are many great men and women of God in South Africa and in Europe. Many European nations embrace the enemies of Israel and they condemn Israel. They accuse Israel of all kinds of accusations. If you are in Europe, if you are in South Africa, and you believe every word in the Bible, and you pray for the peace of Jerusalem, what about you? My friends, these are the days the Bible prophets have prophesied about. In the last days, every nation all over the world will start raising their hand against Israel, and eventually Israel will stand alone. But in a time such as this, the Bible says, we shall live by faith, not by trusting in our governments, our institutions, not even the goodwill of our neighbors. Because once our nations turn against Israel, God's hand of protection and blessing gets taken away from our nations. And our nations become, by implication, our nations become cursed nations. Because if you curse Israel, you will receive that very same curse yourself. And that is what's being done by our corrupt governments and unfortunately by corrupt clergies and church leaders. They support this by their silence, or sometimes by vocally preaching and teaching against biblical truth on the nation of Israel. So my word of encouragement to you, if you are a believer of the Bible, is stand firm, hold on to the biblical truth, don't deviate from it, trust in God. And this is the day, my friends, we live by faith. And continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Continue to pray for the blessings of God over the nation of Israel. Remember this one fact. Jesus Christ is a Jew. In fact, he is the most prominent Jew ever. He is the King of the Jews. Jesus Christ is the King of the Jews. And we, the church, we are not a replacement for Israel. We are only the bride of the King of the Jews. The Bible is very clear. The church is the Gentile bride of the King of the Jews. We are the bride of Christ. We are not the new Israel. Get this right. And these are not my opinions. These are very clear in the Bible. My friends, if this video has been educational and a blessing to you, share it with anyone who needs to hear it, especially with anyone who is seriously a believer of Jesus Christ. Let them learn, let them be educated, and let them choose life. Let them choose to bless Israel. Let them choose to bless the nation of our bridegroom, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. This is Pastor Marco Kiroglu. God bless you and goodbye.